All right, let's go. We're now in the admin dashboard area of the EdApp micro learning software that I'm using. And you'll see here I've created a thing I've called Mobile Micro Learning Sandbox, which is just a place to play with the content, where I've been experimenting on making this link between learning outcomes that we might have with a typical mobile micro-learning course and the sort of learning or deeper learning that might take place within a community of practice. So let's just preview that and see what I've done. The first thing that I've done is amend the lesson outcomes or the goals of the UNESCO UNITAR course. I've kept the first one of them, be aware of the implications of AI on freedom of expression, right to privacy, and right to equality. That's all good foundational knowledge. What I've then done is add 5 further learning goals that reflect the different categories of learning that takes place within the think framework of significant learning experiences. So once we have the foundational knowledge, the question is, what are we going to do with it? So first step is to use the knowledge to identify human rights issues in a wider discussion of artificial intelligence. So that's about applying the knowledge that we have, connecting our knowledge to the achievement of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Now, the Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs, are new content. And I've introduced that because when we build these bridges between what we're going to learn about AI and human rights within the micro learning course, we need to practice those in a different context. So what context are we going to practice what we've learned in? We're going to practice in the context where there is a program or there are projects to achieve the UN Sustainable Development Goals using AI, and that will trigger the question about to what extent are human rights defenders needed in that process. So this is all about integrating the learning experiences that are taking place and the different types of learning. It's also about interleaving some of the knowledge that's taken place. So what you'll find in this lesson is that we're shifting constantly between AI, human rights and sustainable development goals, because it's a question of joining the dots. And once we understand the patterns that those connections take, then they become easier to follow, I think, anyway. So that's how we've done that. The next aspect is confidently interact with others developing artificial intelligence with regard to the impact on human rights. This focuses on the human dimension of a significant learning experience. So you can see here we're connecting human rights, AI, and the others are the projects, the people who are involved in these projects developing the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And then be ready to engage in exciting AI projects for achieving SDGs that interest you. So this is the point at which the learners are starting to develop into human rights defenders. They're taking on that persona, they're beginning to take on that role. And this is about caring about the information, the topic area that we're involved in. And then the last significant learning area is about identifying sources of information and formulating challenge questions to develop learners' understanding and practice as human rights defenders in the age of AI. So what we're focusing on here is the ability to continue to learn how to learn. Okay, well, we've done that. So then what we're going to do is do an introduction to the particular lesson. As you can see, ready to take your knowledge of AI and human rights to new places. We're setting out the path, then check out AI for good, naming it, saying a little bit about what it is, then in we go. Now, at this next slide, there is an opportunity for our learners to immediately engage with the content around the SDGs. We need to do that pretty quickly because this is new content in the context of this particular course. And we frame our engagement questions in terms that personalise the content to the learners. So first of all, which ones interest you? And then we set them a task. Which ones need human rights defenders in relation to AI usage? And which ones are managing human rights defence needs? Now, this link that we've included will actually take the learners to the Sustainable Development Goals. And they can scroll down and they can find each of the Sustainable Development Goals and information about them down here. So let's just hop back here. Now this is an exercise, so it's a drag the Sustainable Development Goals into their appropriate zone, and we've set up a matrix. I'm interested in it. I'm not so interested in it. I think this is one of the Sustainable Development Goals where AI is utilised and there is a need for human rights defenders, or alternatively it's managing its human rights defence needs okay. Now, I've just selected a few of the Sustainable Development Goals here, and the game is to just slot them into the quadrant that we think is appropriate. So let's start with one of these, quality education. Well, I'm interested, of course, and yes, I think it needs defenders, and we might find out why later on. Good health and well-being, let's say I'm not so interested in that, but yes, it does need defenders. Zero hunger, yes. Clean water, sanitation. So we just shift them around. I'm doing this in a random fashion at the moment to show you what happens as we do it. And then we submit that. That's fine. We can analyse that in our analytics, and we can get a sense of the way in which our learners are thinking about these topics. The next activity that we give them, again, connects them with the Sustainable Development Goals in the field of quality education on this occasion, and it's asking them to identify whether might be a need for human rights defenders. Now, this is just a simple scratch it type tool, so you scratch beneath the surface. And what we find is a quote from one of the programs that's been offered by the AI for Good program run by the ITU. And the thought here is, while AI-powered technologies hold enormous potential to improve lives of children, this can only be achieved if action is taken to address current imbalances in the AI ecosystem, including gender bias and discrimination. So this is freedom of equality, the human right that we've been exploring up to this point in the UNESCO UNITAR course. Then there's an opportunity to check that out. So we can go to find out what that's all about, and it will take us to the AI for Good program, and specifically it will take us to a learning opportunity that was presented last year in May, Developing Girls' Digital and AI Skills for More Inclusive AI for All. And the premise for this particular session was that the AI sector has a serious problem, lack of gender inclusion and equity for girls. And one then can look through that. You can go to the webinar, it'll be recorded, have a look and see what that's about, if that's one of the areas, for example, that's interesting to you. So then we'll go back, so we've scratched beneath the surface, and can you see how we're starting to build connections between our micro-learning content on AI and human rights, but also programs and communities where these programs are being implemented that are calling out for human rights defenders to step forwards. Okay, so then we probe a little bit deeper and we give our learners the opportunity to discover what other UN agencies are doing, and here they can just have a look and see what AI for Good is all about. They can follow that link, they can look at the AI for Good neural network, and they can see that it's a network community platform powered by AI and designed to help users build connections with innovators and experts, link innovative ideas with social impact opportunities and bring the community together. And of course there are links there. And the challenge question is posed to our learners: could human rights defenders make valuable contributions to the network community? How would they go about it? Now they've got an opportunity to pop in here and say something. They can type in whatever they might like, have their say. It will come up in the forum. They can then see who said what. They can respond to each other so that there is a controlled and moderated social network program operating within the mobile micro-learning course itself. We haven't stepped outside. We haven't placed that in Twitter. We haven't put it on other social media, so we can control that, and we can be reasonably certain that it will be free from algorithmic bias, echo chambers and so forth. Okay, well, let's move on. So the next thing is the use of a small teaching technique, and what we're asking now is for our learners to recall what they learnt when they explored the AI for Good neural network and the AI for Good program. What's the difference between them? And this is just a simple exercise that asks them to drag the labels to their appropriate functions. So the neural network helps users to build connections, and the AI for Good program is a digital platform where innovators, problem owners, learn, build and connect to help identify practical solutions. So we put that in. So that's correct. Now we're going to check again, because one of the important aspects of learning is the ability for our learners to recall. As long as they continue to practice retrieval of the information, they start to embed their learning. So we're looking for learning that sticks. And we're asking our learners, what was the AI for Good neural network designed for? They've got an instruction to pick 3 purposes. You'll recall we've just had a look at those. Now I'm going to choose the wrong purposes. I'm going to choose bring the community together to advance the SDGs using AI. I certainly remember that was there. Build connections with AI innovators and experts. That looks good. Promote and protect human rights. Is there something about human rights? I've been doing that, and of course I'm going to punt that and say that it's that one as well. So I'll continue. Now I'm going to get some feedback, immediate feedback. So not quite. And I'm told that all answers are correct except for promote and protect human rights. That's the role of the UN Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights based in Geneva. So we've corrected the information. But then we're going to add something further to continue to encourage our learners to make these connections and to start to form themselves internally, should they wish to do so, as human rights defenders. So we provide the bridge or the means by which they can do that. But you can still participate in the AI for Good neural network as a human rights defender, using your knowledge to raise awareness of the impacts of AI on key human rights. So then we continue. That's it. Nice work. You've completed this lesson. If they've got answers correct along the way, they get stars for doing that, and they get a little certificate at the end. Thanks for watching.